Hello, everyone. Marq Neasman here. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. You are tapped into another high-performance leadership masterclass. I'm Marq Neasman, and today we have a great topic. Okay, today we're going to be talking about buyer consciousness. And when we speak about buyer consciousness, this obviously resonates directly with your sales and marketing team. So whether you're the sales and marketing guy, or whether you're leading a team and you're a sales leader, or whether you're in a management position over your marketing team, it really doesn't matter. These this buyer consciousness conversation that we're having today is going to be vital for your growth and for your evolution. All right. And these are things, honestly, that I wish I knew even when I was building some of the entities that I was developing, right? Sometimes as an entrepreneur, we get into the marketplace and we just assume that everyone understands a problem the same way we do. Sometimes when we are growing as a small business, we are so close to the problem and we speak in terminology that oftentimes goes over our ideal buyer's head, and we don't realize that they have no clue exactly what it is that we're talking about. Sometimes when we're scaling growth, stagnance sets in. When we hit that $5 million, $10 million, $20 million mark, stagnance sets in because we find ourselves focused on just one primary industry. And when it comes to us diversifying ourselves, we get caught because we don't realize that we have to reconsider what the buyer consciousness looks like in these other industries. And so today we're going to dive into how to begin to ask these questions so that we and our sales team and our marketing team can begin to address them long before we get a potential client or a customer on a phone call or in a virtual setting or even in person, and end up dropping the ball on that lead because we were not aware or conscious enough about what was going on in that individual's mind. So with no further ado, thanks so much for giving me your time and attention. And if you haven't caught on by now, if you're an executive, this is a great class for you to attend to. We host these every Monday and Friday. If you are a sales leader or a marketing leader, this is a great masterclass for you to lean into. And in the event that you want more, let's say you get to the end of this and you like what you heard, you say, hey, Marq, how can I find more? One, you can click the link below and subscribe, because you'll absolutely be able to gain massive benefits just from the education that we'll be bringing forward. But also, we do have the round table, which is our sales and marketing mastermind for executives and business leaders. So if that is something you would like to take advantage of, there will be a link below that you can click as well. So jumping into the conversation, the 5 consumer biases. This is what we're going to be breaking down today. Now, the first consumer bias that we're going to unwrap is confirmation bias. Confirmation bias. Say confirmation bias. All right. So confirmation bias. What is that? Confirmation bias is when a person looks for and interprets information, whether it is news stories, statistical data, or the opinions of other people, that actually back whatever assumption or theory they already have. So honestly, when we consider the fact that most human beings buy from an emotional state, right? They buy out of emotion, and then they rationalize with logic. This is a common sales concept. But because we realize that, we should always be finding ourselves selling a service or a product that naturally people want, right? And not only do they want it, but they understand the purpose for it. Because then we only have one major objective, and that's us being known as the prominent individual or the prominent business serving that product, right? And naturally, we can serve the same product or the same service in multiple industries, right? So there is never a time where we should grow comfortable in this first consumer bias. Sorry, I want to say buyer consciousness. which is the confirmation bias. We should never get to a place where we're just super comfortable and we're not intrigued and learning, no matter how much we scale as a business. Okay, confirmation bias. They have already been programmed. All right, they've already been programmed. They like what they like, and they're not moving away from it. So this is oftentimes one of the easier sales we'll already get, because 9 times out of 10, this individual may already have a high degree of loyalty to a specific product or a specific service or a specific company. And if not that, then at least they have an idea, so to speak, of what it is that they want. They've been around the block, so to speak. Okay. These people tend to be educated buyers. Okay. And naturally, they want to feel that the money that they're spending has been well spent. Okay. They're not, these individuals are looking for a deal. They're looking for an opportunity. And in most cases, as long as you give them that, these people are going to buy. Okay. Now, this confirmation bias that we're talking about, it absolutely comes with, some pros and some cons. Obviously, pros are, if you are looking to diversify your product or diversify what it is that you're offering, make tweaks and changes, you could very well lose this client or lose this customer, right? Even if it means the changes you're making actually improve your business. Maybe even if you increase your prices, it might mean losing this particular buyer because they are looking for statistics. They're looking for data. They're looking for things that justify what they've already made up in their mind that they are going to do. Okay. So confirmation bias, we should be asking these questions in our sales team. Hey, what is it that we think people, our buyers, know about us? What is it that we think our buyers know about us? The second question we should ask is, what is it that we are sure they know about our brand or about our product or about our service? What is it that we are sure they know? We have hard data backing it. We can go to Google reviews, or we can go to whichever review website you're on, or you have the statistical data that you can look at internally. You've done some form of a review internally, and you can look at these data cards. You can look at these scorecards and track exactly what it is that people are saying about it. Maybe you can even look at complaints and see exactly what people are saying. You can go inside of your customer support and look at tickets. What is it that people are saying? Where are the complaints coming from? Right? These are easy ways to be able to gauge what the confirmation bias is concerning your product, especially from this particular buyer. Okay. The next bias that we're going to talk about today is anchoring effect. It's what's known as anchoring effect. Okay. Anchoring effect. All right. So anchoring effect is sometimes referred to as the relativity trap or even focalism. All right. But the anchoring effect is when consumers focus on a single aspect of a product, all right, or service, to the exclusion of all other considerations. All right. For many consumers, price is the most important thing. I'll be honest with you. In their decision-making process, it doesn't go beyond that. And oftentimes that's understandably so. And people experiencing the anchor effect often do these 4 things. The first thing you'll see from an individual who's experiencing anchor effect. Remember, we all experience these, by the way. None of these are bad, so to speak. Every one of us experience these in our day-to-day interactions and in our decision-making, especially when it comes to how we spend our money. But the first one that we have to consider is ignoring the potential benefits of a product or service in favor to just focusing on the price. Wow. How many times have you and I fallen subject to that, right? We are in executive seats. We are in business leader seats. We are in entrepreneurial seats, and we fall subject to these same things, right? Or comparison. They do the comparison where they shop more extensively than other consumers. Yeah, they simply do their research, and they because they've done their research, they are far more experienced or far more knowledgeable than other individuals. And naturally, they do their how do larger organizations overcome this? Well, they simply allow, you know, that they'll challenge your price. So if you come to Amazon or if you go to Walmart with a lower price from a competitor, they'll match the price match, right? This is because they are aware of the anchoring effect or the relativity trap, right? They don't want to lose out on a buyer simply because of the fact that they charge a lower price. How many times are you losing out on a buyer simply because you charged a higher price? Now in our sales presentations, if this happens to us, we have to look at our sales presentation. We have to look at our marketing, right? We have to look at our offer. What is it about our offer that is excluding valuable information that actually sets us apart from our competitors, right? We should be, why do I do this when we say competitors? Side note, we should be a one of one. There should be no competitor. You heard it here first. I'm not a marketer, so I'm not going to tell you that there are competitors to provoke you to spend your money. I'm a consultant. I'm a strategist. And as a strategist, our firm, we believe that when you become a one of one, there is no competition. Whether it's in your service or in your product, it doesn't matter. When you become a one of one, there is no competition. And that goes back to your offer. That goes back to how we position our offer and how and in each industry and how we convey that message. But if we just stick to a simple concept, giving more for less, we always win, right? It's beautiful. Keeping things simple is genius, right? That's what my mentor says. Keeping things simple is genius. Now, the third element that we have to consider when it comes to anchoring effect is that these people are actively seeking out money-saving deals, like coupons and they are actively seeking these things out. They do not aspire in any way, shape, or form to spend more money. These are people who come to the table with a set amount of money in their mind that they're going to spend. They're not going to spend any more than that, okay? They come with a set amount of money that they spend. So what does that mean for our sales presentations? It doesn't matter what we're selling. In our sales presentations, we should be approaching that presentation knowing to some degree the mindset of the buyer that we're dealing with, right? Some people, it's only really two ways that individuals make purchases. People purchase on price and people purchase on value. They purchase on price and they purchase on value. So when it comes to your offer and how to overcome anchoring effect, we have to be wide. We have to be knowledgeable of the fact that, hey, these individuals are coming with a price in their head. They're not going to go beyond that price. And we have to figure out what that price is. I mean, it's no different from selling to the government. The government is well known for this, right? They do their own research. They're coming to the table with a set price in their head. There is nothing you can say or offer to them that's going to make them go above that price. If you do go above that price, they don't let you know. Why? Because in most cases, it's through an RFP, a request for proposal. So you have no way of knowing what that set price is or what other people are pricing. You just know that you should be competitive in your pricing in some way, shape, or form. You have to know your buyer. You have to know your buyer. But these people, here's something that I love, and it's something that I really appreciate so much about how Marq Neasman Consulting, our firm, how we've been able to handle pricing. It's very rare in any product or service that we offer where there's a set price. The only time that there is a set price in our firm is when it relates directly to the amount of time we have to give. But just about everything we offer is based around value. And so there's a percentage, some form of a performance based payment model that we have in place, which I absolutely love, because again, it creates value, and now there is no price gouge. Now there is no race to the bottom, so to speak. You can't compare our pricing with someone else. I love it, right? And I'd encourage you to implement the same thing. And you can obviously reach out to us if you want to figure out how to go about doing that inside of your organization. But these people respond well to flexible pricing structures. Now, something that just about every organization that you'll come across, they're doing it in some way, shape, or form, is some degree of a monthly payment plan, right? Now, MRR is a great concept. Monthly recurring revenue is a great concept if you're not already leveraging it, but it works for who it works for. Okay. So we have to be conscious of that, even as executives, and in making these decisions, or in getting the people in the rooms that are actually helping us to make these decisions, our brain trust. We have to be conscious about how far we can move the needle when it comes to creating flexible pricing. Now, again, back to what I mentioned first, if we base our pricing around value and we give more for less, now as long as that less is beyond enough for us to maintain and still grow, still increase the bottom line, then we win. You win, right? So we're not afraid to do work. We're not afraid to earn our reputation in the marketplace. That's what we're here for, right? We're here to serve people, and we're here to give far more than what people. We're here to give more value than what they paid for. If we don't agree with that concept, then we may not be here very long because someone else is. Someone else is, and we don't determine, the marketplace does, right? So those four elements being considered, again, for anchoring effect, they tend to ignore the potential benefits of a product simply because of the price. They comparison shop more extensively than other consumers. They actively seek out money-saving deals, and they respond well when it comes to pricing structures. The third bias we want to be conscious of, and we want to go back. I'm challenging you to go back to your sales teams. I'm challenging you to go back to your CRO or your sales director or your marketing director, whoever it might be, your CMO. I'm challenging you to go back to these individuals and ask these questions, okay? The next question, or the next bias that we want to consider, is the ambiguity bias. Ambiguity bias. Now, it's also known as the loss aversion bias. Now this is something. This is a psychological mechanism that is a part of our amygdala. It's how we're wired to consider loss and consider what it is that consider the risk there. Right? We all have some degree of risk management, that this capsule in our brain that just right, because we are designed to focus on living, right? Loss aversion bias. This cognitive bias can be best summarized as the decision to favor a choice of a known outcome versus taking a chance on something that has unknown probabilities. Yeah, you've seen this before. Like every time you shake a new hand, right? You have to ask that same question. Every time you walk into a business meeting and it's a new face there, you have to ask the same question, right? From a psychological standpoint, the ambiguity effect is closely related to risk aversion, like we mentioned. Tendencies to dislike losing a lot more than they enjoy winning. Now, that's a mindset and character that has to be developed in one, that says, hey, losses come with it. Losses are just a part of it. Losses aren't, I didn't lose, I just learned, right? And I have to learn in order to grow, right? Leaders are learners, which means leaders lose, but leaders learn when they lose, right? These are these are concepts that we have to develop, and learners are earners. So in order to earn, I must first lose. These are mindsets that have to be developed in our executive faculties, and how we function, and how we think, and how we approach everything about what we do in leading teams and organizations. But nonetheless, you know, these losses that we talk about, um, these losses have a far larger gains in their mind than about these losses have far more of an effect in the minds of this person who suffers from ambiguity bias than the actual pros to this. So how do you overcome this? How do you overcome this when it comes to the ambiguity bias, right? Well, before we answer that question, let's talk more about two elements of how these people think, okay? They're very reluctant to new things. These people don't like new things. Now, everything about us in the executive seat says we actually want to create innovative products or services, right? We want to be cutting edge, right? We want to have the latest technology, right? Some of our buyers won't like that. And do we have a mechanism in place that takes that into consideration? No, you don't even need to leave your building, right? This is change management 101, right? You don't need to leave your building to see where getting everyone on board, creating buy-in within your organization is a challenge all by itself, right? So we see this ambiguity bias take place even in our own settings, even in our own environment, even in the environment where we are heavily a part of creating and molding the ecosystem. We still see this take place. So what is the second element that of thought that people who have ambiguity bias, which is you and I to some degree, right? Limited ability to recognize long-term benefits of riskier decisions. Then when weighing that against marginal gains resulting from safer choices. Here's an example. I use this one quite frequently. If I said, hey, I can show you how to save $20,000 a month on your bottom line, you're much more ready to lean in and listen to what I have to say than if I said to you, hey, I can show you how to make $200,000 a month. Because of the ambiguity, there is something about your brain, about the mind of human beings that says, hey, I'd much rather be safe and keep what I have than take a risk of going and getting more. If you can show me how to keep more of what I have, then I'd be much more interested in listening to that conversation, right? This is why we naturally would listen to our CPA before we listen to the stock investor or the stock advisor, right? It's just understanding that there's such a risk associated with any time that we set to gain something. Or we would much rather choose marginal gains that are proven, that we know of, rather than going outside of that framework and seeking something new. So you face this in your products and in your services, okay? You should be faced, because you should be innovating. And as an innovator, you should be on the bleeding edge. You should know more about your industry than other people, which naturally means that there will always be some degree of ambiguity regarding your consumer base, right? There will always be some degree of ambiguity. It should be, because you should be a high performance leader in your industry. And if that's the case, then you'll always know more than everyone else around you, right? Because you're seeking information, which is the same reason that you're listening to this video right now. But nonetheless, because this is the case, here's how we get around it. You want to know how to get around this? Here's how you get around it. You mitigate risk. It's just that simple. You mitigate risk. How do I mitigate risk? The way that we mitigate risk is in our guarantee. I'm sorry, I keep coughing. I don't have any water around me right now. Shame on me, right? You mitigate risk through your guarantee, right? So here's how we do that in Marq Neasman Consulting. Our guarantee is 40 to 60% increases in impact, income, and influence cumulatively, year after year. If we don't deliver on that in 3 to 12 months, you get your money back. So there is no loss. And we know that we are cutting edge in the way that we approach management consulting. We designed it that way. We designed it to be a one-of-one. We designed it to be like no other management consulting firm. And so in that, there will be some degree of ambiguity because our approach to doing business with our clients is different. And so because it is different, it hasn't been seen before. The degree of guarantee that we offer hasn't been seen before. It creates ambiguity. It creates some degree of question. And your offer should too. But in that question, it doesn't mean, people naturally reject from what they don't know. It's true. It's true. But people also will draw towards an intrigue. There's still intrigue. And anytime you position an offer that is so good, that is difficult, a no-brainer offer, as they call them, where the offer is so good, you feel foolish saying no. Yeah, your ability to create that eliminates any degree of ambiguity bias. The ambiguity that may exist has been canceled out, so to speak, because of the guarantees and the outcomes that you created inside of the offer, right? And there's frameworks. We have a framework that teaches you exactly how to do this. We teach it inside of the roundtable. We teach it inside of our sales leadership services. It doesn't matter, okay? If you have an underperforming sales team, or you have stagnant numbers, or whatever the case may be, you know that you have greater potential to sell and deliver than what you do. You should reach out to us because we teach these same formulas to your entire staff and hold them accountable to make sure that they deliver on them. Because if they don't deliver on them, we don't get paid. So again, we're everything about what we do is performance based. So the next bias, moving on, and we only have 2 more left, so we'll be out here shortly. But the next bias that I really want to bring your attention to is the recency bias. Say recency bias. Recency bias. Recency bias is the tendency to overvalue the most recent information available to us because that information is specifically fresh or salient, so to speak, right? People tend to believe that this is, in some way, shape, or form, the start to a new normality. Now, we see this in the stock market all the time, where you might see a trend going for 3 months, and then all of a sudden, people say, oh my goodness, it's the new norm. You've seen it with COVID, right? COVID came and went, and now people are going right back to the market the economy has made its adjustment and is slowly moving back to an old norm. Now, there will be some things that just won't be the same because through this process, our eyes and minds have been illuminated, and we've seen that in some cases, there are better ways to go about doing life than what we did previously. Now, once the mind expands, it doesn't contract again, right? So you don't go back to old ways. That would be misery. No one goes back to a lower form of living when they know better. When you know better, you typically, well, not everybody, but you know the saying, right? When you know better, you do better. Now, what are the tendencies that we see around the recency bias? Okay, we see this tend to happen, like I mentioned, obviously in the stock market, consumer investors versus true investors. But another place that we regularly see this take place is when it comes to health. right? Anytime that, I mean, it's almost cyclical, that you can bank on every year there being a new test study or something being released regarding health that discredits the nutrition value in one product over another, right? Remember a time when cowboys roamed America and it was all about beef? Yeah, that's why there were cowboys, because beef was marketed so heavily to the consumer. Being a cowboy was a great living. It was a great living to herd cattle, right? And we see this shift massively over time, right? It is we see this in really the what we call the big three. All the time we see it in the big three: health, wealth, and relationships. If you're in that industry, then you can vouch for what I'm saying right now. To some degree, there's an association or a body that oversees or governs these particular industries, and they set forth the motion. If it's not them, then sometimes it can be political, right? Politicians will sometimes come into play and rearrange the laws that make it either advantageous or not, for certain industries or certain sellers in industries, to thrive more than others. And this naturally shapes how people approach the recency bias. It's another reason that, as human beings, we're always attracted to new and updated information. You know, anytime we see the word breaking news, we draw towards it, because this is a part of what as humans we deal with it, which is recency bias, right? Now, again, if these terms are new for you, it's important for you to consider even yourself as an executive, as someone who makes decisions on a day-to-day basis about where money should go and where it should not. You are falling subject to these as well. I fall subject to these as well, right? Do we spend money on diversifying and in mergers and acquisitions, or do we take that money and pour it into marketing, or do we double down on our payroll? You know, those are decisions that determine livelihoods all the time, and we have to be conscious about that, right? Recency bias is something that we suffer from, whether we choose to admit it or not. Now, the last one, and then I'll see you again at the end of the week. But the last one here is bandwagon effect. Bandwagon effect. Now, this cognitive bias, bandwagon effect, is closely related to the psychological phenomenon known as herd mentality. I know you've heard of herd mentality before, right? I just have full confidence in it, right? Where they see the crowd go, that's what everyone else does. Individuals experiencing the bandwagon effect place a much greater value on the decisions of what their peers say, as opposed to their own thought. They have not taken the time to do the research, learn for themselves. Instead, they're just buying in on what their peer group says, because, and it's simple why people do this, it's harder to think than it is to just follow. People would much rather follow than actually take the time out to leverage their analytical brain, put their brain to use, and make a sound decision on their own. Okay, and there are a bunch of different reasons why, beyond the fact that it's easier. Another reason is it gives them someone else to blame, quite frankly, which does not look good in any way, shape, or form. We understand this as executives and as business leaders, as high performance leaders, but the average consumer does not, right? So from a consumer perspective, it's summarized as making purchasing decisions out of a desire to have or be seen with the next big thing, right? You maybe heard the cliche saying, we buy things for people to impress people we don't know, right? It's something about a human that feels more inclusive, more involved, more hip, more updated when they just have something that's in style or new, right? And they also obviously do this to increase their social status, right? And sometimes by owning a particular product, they can get that. Now, here are a few indicators of someone who is suffering from bandwagon effect. And I know we're at the last one, but I really encourage you to take this video, send it to your marketing director, okay? And have him look over these to make sure that in all of your marketing, you're considering every one of these elements. It is vital for the expansion of your business. These are not maybes. We've come to the agreement that these biases, both you and I, are prone to them. So if you and I are prone to them, what does that say about your consumer base? Right? Now, if you're listening in on this because sales are low, well, one easy way to move that needle 5 to 10% is just by speaking to these 5 biases, asking the questions around these 5 biases, right? So here are the tendencies that have to do with bandwagon effect. The first one is a tendency to overlook product specifications in favor of design or aesthetics. This is like the main thing when it comes to shoes, right? Rarely is the consumer buying the shoe because it's actually a great shoe. They're buying the shoe because it looks good, right? And so as a producer, we have if you're in clothing industry, you have a decision to make, right? Do I buy for looks or do I buy for comfort? Do I buy for performance, right? That's a real question that has to be considered in just about every scenario. Sometimes, and it's very difficult to do both. Very difficult to do both, right? It's usually either one or the other. Another tendency of bandwagoners is a willingness to spend significantly more on branded goods. Yeah, see, that's what everyone else is doing. So in that buy, remember, it's emotional, right? That buy is not necessarily about the product. That buy is for social capital. They're buying for social capital. They're buying for the ability to have influence in their peer group. Okay? Because that brand is known among the individuals that they desire to be looked at in an appealing light from. Okay? The next tendency here is a strong desire to fit in with demographics and stylish or trend when it comes to being stylish or trendsetting, which obviously I just spoke to, right? These, to be a trendsetter gives you what value overall? In context, very little. It doesn't increase income. It doesn't increase impact. It doesn't increase influence, right? There are much more powerful ways to do these, is my point. However, people who do not aspire to be innovators, to be leaders, this is the leverage tool that they utilize. Well, I'll just do what I see other people doing so that I can fit in. In fact, they don't desire to be leaders. They just want to fit in to what the leader is already doing, right? Next, we have they are often very loyal to a handful of recognizable brands. So these individuals, they may never buy from a mom and pop shop. They might not buy or an up and coming Fortune 5,000 brand. If you're a Fortune 5,000 business, they may not buy from you. Why? Because you're not recognized as one of the top players in the industry. That's all. It's not that your product is any less valuable than theirs. It's just the simple matter that their peer group doesn't know you. And so we have to be conscious about this, especially when we begin to breach into a new market. How do you overcome this barrier? Free or fast? Free or fast? Okay? Free always beats fees. Free always beats fees, right? If it doesn't matter if I sell you a product, if I'm willing to give my product away for free and it has similar and or better attributes than a top brand product, that individual is going to say yes 9 times out of 10. Right? Especially if I give that product to the individuals in their peer group, they're absolutely going to say yes because they're a bandwagon, right? So if I get one, I'll get the group, right? But we said free or fast. Fast beats fees. Anytime that I can deliver something faster than someone else, 9 times out of 10, I'll get the sale. Especially if I can deliver with the same amount of quality, I will get the sale because fast beats fees. If you have a fee and if we both have a competitive price for the same product, but I've created a one-of-one in my offer because I've figured out how to get it done faster, I'll get the sale 9 times out of 10. And this is how we go about winning over bandwagoners. Either free, we just give it away for free, or fast. We deliver it faster than what the market is accustomed, or the number one player in the market is doing at that point in time, right? Here's another tendency, the last tendency that I'll mention for the bandwagon, and that's the fact that they're significantly more likely to evangelize brands or companies through social channels. Now, I don't need to ask you at this point why that's important, because I'm willing to bet that you are probably leveraging social media channels right now, either by way of free or fee. Either you're paying for social media marketing or you are leveraging it to build your brand and using the team you have around you to get it done for free, right? Both are extremely profitable. Both work just fine, right? It's just a matter of whether you choose to give your time or your money. It's just that simple. And these are the individuals that we absolutely have the opportunity to reach, because we can obviously, there's no set number of time that we can put a product in front of these individuals. And if they are shown themselves to be followers, once a follower, always, not always, good followers naturally become good leaders, right? Which is why I'm encouraging you to click the button and follow if you haven't done so already. But these individuals are very likely to begin to follow your brand, especially if you're doing it free or fast, right? So today we broke down the 5 consumer biases that your sales team absolutely needs to know. I really hope that this was beneficial to you. I thank you so much. Hey, make sure that you comment below. Let me know what you thought about the video. I'd love to hear from you, want to hear your insight. And feel free to let me know what else it is that you all want to know about concerning leadership and business development. We are here to serve. Again, my name is Marq Neasman. Fix your crown. Rule the day.